Lloyd Begley. I'm the museum curator. Come on in.
Hello, welcome. My name is Gordon Barnhart, and I am the Lieutenant Governor of Saskatchewan. I'm sitting behind an early 20th century mahogany desk in the study at Government House in Regina. Saskatchewan has always been a place of big dreams and larger-than-life characters. These remarkable people have played out those dreams on a vast prairie canvas. Today, I invite you to enjoy a new television series with the unique name, Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. The Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan is the sponsor of this exciting series. Each year, I collaborate with the Society to present awards of excellence in architectural heritage. This series furthers the goals of the awards to stimulate interest in our history, to preserve meaningful places, and to educate our citizens. This series will take you to Saskatchewan cities, towns, villages, and the surrounding countryside. You will meet Saskatchewan people and hear their stories about the history, folklore, and built heritage of our beautiful province. I have always taken great interest in Saskatchewan's heritage, including this magnificent vice-regal house and our impressive legislative building. Join me today to discover the rich history of our province. You will experience a fascinating tapestry of stories woven together by Saskatchewan's people. I invite you to sit back, watch, and enjoy. And you know what? Gargoyles do live in Saskatchewan.
Welcome to this episode of Yes, Gargoyles Do Live in Saskatchewan. It's the show that tells you all about what's happening in the world of architectural heritage. In this episode, we will take you back in time to Melville, when the train was the center of activity. Then listen in as Peter MacArthur shows us an Aboriginal encampment with its original teepee rings. And finally, you will hear how Melville got its name and its link to the sinking of the Titanic.
Got its name as a result of this individual's office. He was the president of the Grand Trunk Railway, better known now as the CNR. And when Melville, when they were coming to choosing a name for this particular site, they asked him if he would allow his name to be used, the Melville part of Charles Melville Hayes. He agreed to this, and as a result, there was a very impressive rail station built here. It's the only one left of its kind, we believe, in Canada, and there's a very active restoration committee working to preserve this building. We get ownership hopefully this summer, and then we begin this very historic renovation project. Thank you. Melville is a regional divisional point for CN Rail. As you can see in the foreground, there are a train going by. We get as many as 30 to 35 trains going through our community on a daily basis, and this community has approximately 300 employees that are associated with CN, so a very big part of the fabric of our community. These people are very responsive to our community and its needs. This particular station was built in 1908. It's the last of its kind, we believe, in the country of Canada. In the early 1900s, there were many Type E stations built. I believe about 200 stations were built throughout Saskatchewan, but not of this particular form. This is a Type A structure, and again, because it was built in recognition to sort of glorify the name of Charles Melville Hayes, it is the only one of its kind in this province, and now it is the only one of its kind left in Canada. Sask Heritage has been very supportive, so we hope a year from now there will be evident signs of work in progress. Again, We believe that the historical nature of our community must be preserved, and this is part of that project. Well, I remember that in 1939, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth made a whistle stop in Melville, and they tell me that on that occasion, in the late 30s, after nearing the end of the Depression, there were some 50,000 people came out here to witness this historic event. Now, in about 1906, 1907, again, this building was built in 1908 on the bald prairie, not true of the parkland today, but there was a huge surge in population in this community. In fact, Melville was regarded as the wonder town of Saskatchewan, and again, many of the people from overseas, from the old world, came to this particular site. Many people, use this facility. In fact, Via Rail still stops in our community on a pretty well daily basis, and people still board the train and go east and west from our community. But it certainly was the hub. People from many different lands. This was often the first stop point in Saskatchewan, and from here they migrated to their respective communities. This is where the crews came in and did their turnarounds, their changes, and so on. All the orders were received here from this particular site. At one time, again in the 50s, as many as 650 different families were employed by CN. What we have here is this wonderful facility. Now, we've been working very closely with Sask Heritage. We do have the original blueprints for this particular facility, and our intent, as is the intent of Sask Heritage, is to bring it back to its more or less original form. It will have...
Well, the train station was the hub of the city in my view. Everything else got its life from the train station, whether it was the church or the skating rink or the hockey rink, as important as those things were, everything revolved around the train station.
Why was that, Larry?
Well, Melville's a railway town, and everybody worked there. I don't know of any of my friends who didn't have a job at one time or another there. I was a paper boy out of the train station. I slung hash in the beanery for doing the midnight shift for one summer. Oh yeah, trains came in round the clock. This train station never closed. It was open 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was a going concern. And it had its own personality. The wood benches in the waiting room and the stools, the leather stools, or maybe they were plastic stools in the beanery. They were all special, and
They say that beanery was...
I delivered newspapers for the Winnipeg Free Press, and they came to the train station, and we met there every night, all of the paper boys, and packed up our sacks and hiked out from there.
So you waited while the train brought in the papers?
Waited while the train brought in the papers. One of us, and often it was me, got to take a stack of papers and walk up and down the aisles of the passenger trains that were waiting. They'd come. The passenger trains would come to Melville. They'd stop for 15 minutes, half an hour. Everybody would go into the beanery, have something to eat, and the paper boys would go up and down the aisles trying to sell a newspaper to somebody.
Did you have any luck with it at all?
Oh yeah, sure. One time I was so lucky that I forgot to get off in time. When the passenger train starts to move, it's very, very gentle, and you can't always perceive that you're starting to move. And on more than one occasion, I had to jump off the train while it was actually moving. I worked the midnight shift at the beanery for one summer.
What does that mean, like 12 till 8?
I forget whether it was 11 to 7 or 12 to 8. I think it was 12 midnight till 8 in the morning.
And there was business?
Lots of business. All of the railroaders used to come in and eat there and have coffee there. Anybody who was up all night would come there, and as well, on occasion, or at least once a night, sometimes more often, a passenger train would come through, and all the passengers would get off and head to the beanery for, to buy cigarettes or to get a Coke or to have something light to eat.
So it was like a buzzing little place?
It was a busy place. It was a real hive of activity. And it was important in the sort of mind or heart of the city. When the first diesel locomotive arrived in Malville, I think it was 1954. Everybody went down to see this new train engine that we were all quite excited about. Lots of discussion whether the place would change, and of course it did change as a result of that arrival. But it was nothing like on a cold winter night, seeing a steam locomotive operating in the yards is a particularly beautiful thing. Well, they'd start up and the wheels would spin around real fast, and they'd send off sparks, and there was all sorts of steam coming out of it. Seemed like every orifice on the train in all directions. And of course, when it's cold, you see so much more of it, and it had its own special noise. And when railway yards and all of the buildings around it were a busy place. The railroad was the main industry of the town, and everything that went on at the having to do with rail traffic centered around the yards and the station. And of course, the station was the center of it. The telegraph office was in the train station. There was an express operation. I guess if we'd have realized at the time how magical it was, we might have paid more attention to it. But it was just a sort of an automatic presence. It was like the pounding of the heart. You don't miss it until it's gone.
We have a teepee ring, and I guess we can notice that it's on the south side of a hill or a rise, and I guess the main thing to say about it is that it's a winter where they put the teepee, where they lived in the wintertime. The rocks are easier to find and gather, like in the fall when they're setting up a teepee. And because nowadays they use a lot of stakes, wooden stakes, but just for ease of like stakes can't be pounded into the ground, frozen ground in the wintertime, wooden stakes. And then every piece of wood was necessary for heating the teepee, keeping warm, for cooking, and for just keeping warm. Everybody puts the teachings into how a teepee was built and talk about how it involved the family and all the teachings of life, I guess. I guess 12 is mainly the most common amount. And I guess the extra 2 for controlling the wind vents. We've been gone from here since 1901, and a few years after that we were moved to White Bear, and Shiunity was the original name of the chief that was here at the time. But people called him Pheasant Rump because I guess the interpreters didn't didn't know or didn't put too much effort into doing things correctly or properly. In 1901, in collaboration with the Indian agent and some land speculators, they deemed that this land here was too valuable for Indians, too good for Indians. So we were, I guess, forcibly sent to White Bear to live with them. At that time, Ocean Man was just next to us on the south side here. We both ended up at White Bear and forced to live there and intermarry and creator put us here. Everything we need to exist is around here or nearby or could be traded for with neighboring bands. But since we moved back here, we've, I guess since the mid-90s, we've actually, a lot of our people have taken up our original spiritual ceremonies, and there's a creek here that runs near where these teepee rings are, and just north on top of the edge of the hills there's more teepee rings. And okay, I guess there's one here. Seems to be a bit bigger than the other ones, and you can see it's right in the middle of a cow trail, and vehicle traffic goes up and down here. I guess the big teepee ring like that one would involve would be for more of a gathering place. On this place, we I guess it's pretty hard to count, but I think it's about 10 or 12 just along these little hills here, just in this area, and across to the south over there on that little hill, on the southeastern part of it, there's one up there. Nakota is not just a language, it is a way of life.
City of Melville. My name is Mayor Walter Strelaski, and I am part of this very exciting community. Melville is a city of sport, it is a city of culture, and it is a city of history. We will tour City Hall, and we will look at some of the more interesting sites in the city of Melville and focus on our unique CN station. Come inside. When we talk about the history of Melville, you can see in our corridor, in our hallway, we have all the previous council members dating back to about 1908. And I think it's, again, part of our historical tradition. This particular facility, this city hall, was built in 1912. There are some major attempts to renovate this structure. Of course, things like pointing of the bricks, the dome, and we hope to place an elevator so that people may have access to our second floor opera hall. We meet on a very regular basis, once a week, every Monday night, and here we welcome delegations, concerns that our community may have, and we try to provide good government to the best of our abilities.
What's this big stick for, Walter?
Well, this big stick, we have groups that come into to City Hall, and last week I had a group here from Yorton, beyond our community, and we talk about things. We provide a little lesson. We talk about the First Nations talking stone. We talk about the gavel as we use it today, and this is a talking stick. And with young people, and even as our city procedures occur, he or she who holds on to the talking stick has the opportunity to tell their story. And we who are part of the assembly, our responsibility is to listen, and to listen carefully and respect the speaker. So this is the talking stick. Just a beautiful building, our city hall, this opera hall. And